And welcome to another Round the Rotary with me, your host, J.P. Warren. And before we kick it off today, I'd like to say that Round the Rotary podcast is brought to you by Capital Petroleum Consultants. CPC specializes in project engineering and well site supervision in all disciplines of the oil and gas industry. Contact us through www.capitalpetroleumconsultants.com to see what CPC can do for you today. I feel like I'm getting more comfortable doing that as I go on. Anyway, I'd like to introduce our guest for today is Jacob Folz, the Vice President of Drilling at Laredo Energy. And it's, I'm going to call you Jake for this. That's
Works perfect.
I'll do that. Does that work?
Sounds good.
Okay, good. So how you doing today, Jake?
Doing outstanding.
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you coming in, and we're coming on. We're recording this on a Monday after a weekend, and I was saying, before we start every single one of these, I'm always like, okay, all right, let's do this. I always get so nervous about this, but anyway, I appreciate you being here today.
Nowhere else I'd want to be on a Monday afternoon.
Exactly, right? I mean, Monday to any day, there's no place you've got to be, and unless you're recording a podcast that people are going to listen to, right?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Well, Jake, why don't you get us kicked off about this? You have a very interesting story that we were talking about before we recorded about how you actually got into the oil field and how you transitioned from oil field service to the operator side. I kind of want you to talk about that because you have an interesting background growing up just like I do. So why don't you just kick us off and kind of where you're from and where you're at today?
Sure thing, absolutely. So I was born in Brevard, North Carolina. It's in the Blue Ridge. It's 45 minutes southwest of Asheville.
Okay.
Beautiful country. It definitely led me to love the outdoors and all things outside and the mountains especially.
You have seasons up there and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have fall foliage other than just brown. It's very nice.
And honestly, that changes things. Like, you come down here for we're recording this in Houston. I mean, Christmas you wear a t-shirt and shorts. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the fall, Halloween, trees change or anything like that. Yeah.
The oak trees here lose their leaves in March. It's kind of weird.
We have beginning of summer, middle of summer. That's the two seasons. So go on.
So spent most of my youth in kind of Fort Mill Clover area. It's 45 minutes southwest of Charlotte, North Carolina, just over the border in South Carolina. Still small town, southern area. Everybody knew everybody. Football was king. About halfway through high school, moved to Maine, a small town called West Paris. It was part of an area called Oxford Hills. And these would be the foothills of Oxford County, kind of central Oxford County in northwestern Maine, and went to Oxford Hills Comprehensive High School, and was halfway decent at playing football.
All right.
And got a football scholarship to go to the University of Maine,
Okay.
Orono, thriving metropolis that it is.
Go Lobsters.
Go Black Bears.
Sorry, Black Bears. I mean, go on.
Yep. Made it to the quarterfinals 2 years ago in the FCS, so we do pretty good. And played offensive line there, got a mechanical engineering degree, got time to update my resume for the engineering college career fair, and walked around and I was like, I really don't want to work at a paper mill, and nothing against paper mills, of course. Use a lot of paper. Nobody uses more paper than the oil and gas industry, 100%. But want to do something else, want to travel, want to get outside of New England, kind of see some new area.
Right.
And Weatherford had a booth at the career fair, and we had Brad Raymond, and he was there doing some recruiting.
Did you have any idea what Weatherford was, or you just,
No idea whatsoever.
Okay.
I'd never even laid eyes on a rig before.
Okay.
Had no family or friends in oil and gas.
So it's very new to you. You were clueless.
Yes.
I was. Yeah.
I have no idea what they did, and this was just pre-Black Gold. So there was no television to jade my.
You couldn't YouTube. You couldn't YouTube.
I couldn't YouTube.
Yeah, you couldn't find it. Yeah. Okay. All right.
There's no throw and chain on the YouTube at that time, and they offered me a position for a field engineer for LWD. Moved down to Texas in June of 2008, started that.
Was this your only offer you had, or is it just one of those things you're like, yeah, it feels good, I'll do it?
I had a couple other offers, but this one was definitely the one that I thought would open the most amount of doors. It was definitely the most financially astute.
Okay.
In my previous experience, what you got out of something was directly correlative to what you put in, and I knew that this would require me to put the most in. It would require the most days worked, the most effort, the most hours, the most kind of amount of time being uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, you know, it had the, you know, just this myriad of potential outcomes that could come from it.
And that's the thing. I mean, starting off, it sounds like, yeah, it's going to be a lot of time. It's going to be a lot of days away from the house. It's going to suck. There's going to be a lot of tough days out there, but it's good that you have that foresight to say, okay, well, but at the end of 2 years, this is going to help me out big time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so worked strictly in the field for a little over a year, did LWD, MWD, did some rotary steerable work, worked on land, worked offshore, got to see a lot of really cool things. From there, a position opened up as a mechanical engineer at the research and development facility. So I went in and did that for a little over 3 years. During that time, I met Melissa, the woman that became my wife, and she was working for Southwestern Energy at the time, and it was like, oh, hey, this working for an operator thing kind of looks nice. I'd like to try that out for a little bit. And
was that the first time that you thought, you're like, okay, I'd want to go work for an operator now?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
All right.
You know, before it was kind of, you know, everything was from a field perspective. And I mean, you know, just because office people don't talk about how much they make, everybody on that rig knows exactly what everybody else on that rig makes.
Oh yeah.
It's 100% just common knowledge.
Gossip goes around fast.
It's there are no secrets on drilling rigs, and so, you know, making that transition, it's like, hey, you know, I'm not going to get a phone call on a Friday saying, hey, you got to be in Nisku, Alberta on you know, tomorrow.
Right.
Go get your bags packed because, you know, so and so's having a problem with some LWD tools, and we need somebody from engineering to go up. So being the youngest guy in the engineering group, you get to do all the
yeah, you're the soldier. You had to go take care of the immediate fires.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was introduced to a fellow named Blake Patton. He was one of the principals at Sierra Engineering at the time. He had a great relationship with the folks at Swift, namely Homer Adams, and came in, interviewed with Mr. Homer, and was fortunate enough to get a position as a rig site engineer, night well site supervisor, and kind of reoriented my career from the perspective of an operator. Spent a lot of really good time in South Texas, in kind of the greater AWP Tilden area, drilling Omos and some early Eagle Ford horizontals. This would be 2012.
Okay.
So things were still pretty new. And then got to go work on their barge rig in Beta Chene and Lake Washington, and really learned a lot, drilling kind of faulted salt dome structures. It was an amazing time, and one of the things looking back now that I really enjoyed about it was just the hands-on approach, not only from the operations perspective, but from the mentorship that you know, folks like Homer Adams and Lynn Thornhill, our drilling superintendent, really took in us. And Homer being the VP, you know, he didn't need to.
He didn't have to.
He didn't have to. But everybody that he hired for that position, he gave him a copy of the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and he's like, I want you to read this. And so I remember it's the Tuesday morning, the end of my first hitch, and he's talking on the morning conference call, and he asks me, he's like, hey, are you dialoguing with any of the engineers on this book yet? No, I go, no, sir, I'm
dialoguing.
I didn't know that I was supposed to be dialoguing.
That's a 30,000 foot view of being like, are you talking?
Yes.
Are you dialoguing? That's like calling a book literature and movies film.
He had a mastery of the English language that few people do, and you know, I aspire to be as eloquent as he was, and that was both with kind words and with colorful words. But he was absolutely brilliant when it came to his interpersonal relations.
Well, I kind of want to talk about that. So, I mean, you were working at, you know, Weatherford, you know, and then suddenly you're like, you know, I want to change my career goals. You know, I want to get on the E&P, you know, operator side of the company. And you kind of, not only to take on that next challenge, you knew that for the foreseeable future, you'd be, you know, sleeves rolled up, working on the rig, working, you know, hand to hand with these guys out there, guys and girls that are out there. Yeah. How was that mentally for you? I mean, coming from something that you've been doing for 3-4 years to kind of being plunged in, working, you know, on the rig with something that you didn't think that you'd be doing before. I mean, talk to me about I guess, you being uncomfortable, but still taking that challenge.
It was a progression that I knew that I wanted to make, and so I had that goal in mind, and I knew that, hey, you know, just go out there, work hard, serve your time, learn as much as you can, be a sponge, listen to people, you know, do a lot more listening than you do talking,
right.
and it's going to give you a broader base. You know, the broader base, the higher the mountain, right?
Right.
And I didn't know, I knew my little niche. I knew my kind of directional MWD, LWD niche.
So you were comfortable with.
And that's what I was comfortable with. But when it got outside of that, you know, with just fluid systems and rig components and capabilities and all the myriad of different things that go together to make the project that is drilling,
Yeah.
I only knew a snapshot of it. And
Did you ever have like a no shit moment, like, oh my god, what have I got myself into? This is too much.
Yeah, one of the first barge hitches, we were drilling the LL&E number 6 in south of Lake Washington, and it was just, you know, packed off here, water flow there, nothing was going right.
Right.
And just being up all day, every day, day after day, day after day, day after day, and then all during that time, you're not only having all the operational stress because things aren't going right, but at the same time, you know, Homer would, you know, find his opportunities to slip extra work in there because he understood that, you know, pressure makes diamonds, right?
Okay. All right.
And so he would be like, you know, I want you to do, we had our own Swift wiki, and he's like, I want you to write a wiki on principal stresses, you know, and when this wellbore has failed in the maximum or the minimum principal stress, and I want you to just tell me why it did that and how that is determined through the rock mechanics and how you could measure that if you log this hole and so on and so forth. And just, you know, even with all these things going on, and even with being over budget, you know, several $1 million, at the same time, he still cares about, you know, I don't want you to just understand that something went wrong. I want you to understand why it went wrong and how to make sure that this doesn't go wrong in the future.
Yeah, like let's get into why potentially. Yeah.
Let's make the most out of this situation so that we can make better engineers for this corporation going forward. And oh, I was exhausted, you know. Basically, you know, would work 30, 35 hours and sleep for 4 or 5, and then work 30, 35 hours and then sleep for 3 or 4, and just that day after day after day after day. It was wearing, to say the least.
But it's also one of those things too. I think. I mean, speaking toward mentorship. I mean, I know if you have a good mentor in your career path. I mean, whether you're young or even our age or whether you're older. I mean, a good mentorship. I mean, that's all. They always squeeze you for that extra amount of effort. You know, and it's always motivating.
Oh yeah, and you know, I always equated kind of Homer to being like a football coach. You know?
All right.
You know, so my family's military, all athletes. You know, my sport was football, and you can always go further than what you think you can.
Yeah.
And you just need that person there that's going to push you. And normally it's a coach. It's an O-line coach or a D-line coach or a strength and conditioning coach that's going to go, no, I know you've got one more in you,
yeah.
and you're going to give me one more. And then after you do that one, I'm going to tell you to do one more.
Right. Right.
And then we're going to do that until I think you're done.
It's constant pushing, applying pressure, but also setting those expectations higher and higher.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got a great mentor. You're in the field now. You're kind of not over your head, but it's all new to you. It's a learning curve. Mm-hmm. So now what?
So, you know, just still beginning with the end in mind, right? I didn't want to be a well site supervisor for the rest of my career.
Right.
I didn't want to be, you know, 10 years into this and making a great living and providing for my family because, you know, I had just gotten married in 2012, and that was the year that I had started this position with Swift. And it's like, you know, I took this job with the intention of becoming an office drilling engineer.
Okay.
So another fellow that was in the program with me ended up, when we had a downsizing in rig count, we went from 4 rigs to 2 rigs, ended up losing his position there and going on and joining with Stonegate as a well site supervisor there. And he was asked by Chapman Amend, who was our VP of drilling at the time, if he knew any good young engineers that were kind of lean and hungry. You know, not a lot of people refer to me as lean, but you know, asked if they were lean or hungry from a technical standpoint to come in and you know, help do the day-to-day engineering so we could focus on the system level thought processes that are needed by the engineering manager and VP. And
okay.
So, and without missing a beat, Shay was kind enough to bring my name up, and you know, so Chapman said, "Hey, well, call him, tell him that if he's interested, he needs to call me." he needs to make the effort to go
Yeah.
out of his way to get a hold of me. And I was like, absolutely, this is why I took this position. So if I've got line of sight to the position that I took with the goal when I had this offer, then I'm definitely going to make it.
Did you feel 100% comfortable in your role before you actually made this phone call?
No,
Okay.
no, not at all.
Okay.
I don't think you'll ever, and you know, maybe there are people that are out there that are a lot smarter than me. Well, there are a lot of people that are smarter than me. But if you're ever 100% confident or comfortable in your role, then you're probably not really.
Right.
You know, because you've always got an opportunity to learn. You've always got an opportunity to be better today than you were yesterday, and so on and so forth. There is no such thing as perfection on anything that humans do.
Right.
You know, we all fall short of the glory.
Yeah.
And if you don't go into it with that mindset, then you've already failed.
Okay.
So you want to be a lifelong learner in anything that you do, whether it's, you know, tiddlywinks on up. And so it's like, you know, hey, there are probably 30 dudes out there that can fill this role way better than I can, but I really want to do this. I'd like to work for Stonegate. You know, y'all have got a lot of rigs going right now. You know, they have 4 rigs at the time, 2 sputters and 2 big rigs.
And you just kind of want the opportunity to
I just
fail
want the
or
opportunity.
succeed.
Yeah.
Just give me the opportunity to either one. Yeah.
Just give me the shot. Let me
right.
handle it as best I can, and if you like it, great. And if you don't, you're not going to hurt my feelings by
Right.
telling me so. And Chapman was kind enough to offer, and they had a big kind of mentorship policy over there. The CEO was Mike Harvey. You know, he was famous for asking everybody that he brought in, you know, do you want to be a CEO? And at least all the management guys, he never asked me that. But had he, I would have said, no, I want to be COO.
Okay.
But
Okay.
anyways, so came in and just hit the ground running. And I remember the first 3 weeks there, you know, everybody that works in an office, they get in the habit of every now and then, you know, checking their phone or whatever, you know, getting up and walking to the lunch cooler or whatever.
Yeah.
And the first like month there, there's just drinking from a fire hose, just trying to stay on top of everything, because you know we were presetting surfaces in 36 hours every day and a half.
Oh, it's just.
I've got to have a full new product, full new cement plan, full new fluids plan. We were using Pence Brothers. You know, we had 2 SRAM TXDs, and they were just knocking
blowing
out
and
the park.
going.
We had 2 H&P Flex 3s that were just absolutely phenomenal iron, and we were knocking out wells in kind of, you know, when I got there it was kind of 12, 14 days, and we got it down to about 7.
So how was it for you? So you got this goal. You got this goal to go from a service side to be the guy that, you know, makes the decisions, the drill engineer. Was it everything you kind of expected it to be? Was it what was different about it than you expect? Well, I mean, tell me about that. What was in your mind when you were
The first few
finally
weeks
getting
was definitely like oh crap.
What have I done?
What have I done now?
Yeah.
I've gone too far. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. But you know, you're so busy you don't really have too much time to dwell on it. It's not till later down the road that you really get to kind of step back and go, holy crap, that was a pretty crazy
Right.
situation there. I'm glad I'm on the downhill slide of it. And it was a lot of fun. And I mean, this was you know, 2013, 2014.
Okay.
This was the, you know, the oil field was still fun back then, you know.
Hasn't been fun for a while.
No, it hasn't. But I still wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Amen.
But you know, it was just such a blast, you know.
And so were you meeting a lot of people?
Oh,
You're meeting all
just-
these good vendors. You meeting all these
Building relationships
yeah.
that I still have to this day. You know, the people that run my mud now are the people that ran my mud
Right.
then. You know, a lot of the bit guys. You know, I'm big on using this term service partner.
Yep.
You know, we're all on the same team. You know, being my background being sports and things of that nature. You know, we're all pulling the rope in the same direction.
Everyone's part of it.
And just understanding the relationships there and meeting people that you know, now consider just some of the best friends that I've got.
Yeah.
And just phenomenal human beings, and the things that they did to help, you know, just because my experience was still kind of smaller. You know, I'd gone from directional to then, you know, well site supervision, and I still hadn't seen a lot from the other side. You know, I was still learning the regulatory side,
Yeah.
especially, and needed a lot of help. You know, we had a fellow in Austin named Bill Spencer, who really was kind of a consulting regulatory guy, was just tremendous in kind of helping answer a lot of those questions there, and make sure that we were doing what we needed to do
Right.
from a railroad commission standpoint and things like that. And just continue to learn and get better every day, and understand, and you know, met probably one of the most important working relationships, like every day, day in and day out working relationships there, a fellow named Kevin Jones. He was my drilling superintendent there. I brought him with me to Geo Southern, and I've been fortunate enough to bring him with me over to Laredo. And he's just phenomenal. The way that he thinks, he's one of the most down-to-earth, while still intelligent people that you'll ever meet. Has amazing common sense, and has rig sense and downhole goggles better than I'd put him up there with anybody anywhere when it comes to that sort of stuff. Just lives and breathes drilling, and you know, you put the two of us together, and I feel like we can go anywhere and do anything, just because of his understanding and downhole knowledge there.
Which is a great feeling to have, that you actually have someone out there that you actually kind of like team up with and kind of work off each other.
It's like checks and balances, you know, he'd bounce ideas off me, I'd bounce ideas off him. You know, he's got his strengths, I have my strengths, and to have that good working relationship with an office engineer and a drilling superintendent or a well site supervisor, you've got to understand that, yeah, you've got your roles and your responsibilities, but you've got, you know, easily a third of your roles and responsibilities are kind of overlapping. You know, think of like the Olympic rings, right? You know, they've got that overlap there. And to understand that, and then to not have the ego behind it, to be willing to be like, hey man, that's a brilliant idea. We need to freaking do that because I want to drill faster and cheaper, and I still want everybody to go home with the same number of fingers and toes that they can work with. And you know, I want to do what's right by you know, not spilling, not hurting anybody, and things like that. And so he's just, you know, anywhere I go, I'm going to take him with me because I know I can trust him.
But that's, I mean, that's kind of what's cool about our industry, though. It's those relationships that you make, and they could be, whether it's, you know, on site on the rig, or, you know, running a wireline unit, or whether it's, you know, at a, you know, Doug Permian, you know, happy hour. It doesn't matter where you meet someone and jive with someone. It's those relationships that kind of can help you and help their career kind of, I guess, you know, take off. Yeah. In my opinion.
Mutually take off.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, one of the big things that kind of Chapman always used to say when you know, only 20% of what you do is engineering. 80% of what you do is relationships and people. You know, it's the people that are out there that are doing the work. You've got to lead the people. You've got to manage the people. You've got to mentor the people. You've got to get them to do what you want, even when sometimes they don't want to do what you want. But they've got to do it to the best of their abilities.
Did you buy that? Do you buy that right now?
I 100% buy that. You know, and I'm halfway decent at math. I'm not the dumbest person, but I'm not the smartest person. But what I think I am halfway decent at is finding people that think similarly, that when you put them together is just tremendously better than the sum of the parts.
Now, what is that? Is that just you, kind of your experience in the oil field, or is that kind of you kind of can suggest that that's kind of your sports background that kind of allows you to have that team building mentality? I mean, what?
I think a lot of it is that sports background, and just understanding the people that were good in the locker room and that weren't good in the locker room.
Right.
You know, and I was an offensive lineman. You know, when my name got called, it was a bad thing.
Okay.
If people knew who I was, it was a bad thing.
All right.
You know, I only got my name called over the PA when, you know, it's, oh, holding, oh, offsides. That's not what you want to be known for. So if I had a perfect game, no one knew my name. Right. And so I've kind of gravitated toward people that have that workmanlike mentality, you know, lunch pail and hard hat, and just want to get it done. And it's those blue collar, work ethic mentality kind of people that just help you succeed.
Get the job done.
Yeah.
They get the job done. And you're actually, I mean, I think I want to talk about this, and we all talk about, you know, the mentors that have kind of shaped our careers and shaped our, you know, what we've done and all this stuff. But you're actually, you came in before we started recording, you actually talked about how you're actually taking an active mentorship position where it doesn't matter, you can have a mentor, but you can also be a mentor.
Yeah, no, you've got to be able to be both, especially as you move kind of out of the individual contributor places and positions and into a managerial role. And you've got to understand that you don't necessarily need to know more than that person in order to mentor that person. You just need to understand how to ask the right questions and how to think the right way. And in oil and gas, the right way is just adding value. You know, for your group, do you add value, and do your reports add value, and are you adding value to the people?
I feel that's such a broad statement, though. Like, you know, oh, add value, be adaptive, be innovative, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like, when you say add value, like, what are you actually looking for in your team when it's called value?
So there are a couple really easy ways that I feel like you can add value in a drilling program. And the first is that understanding that, you know, landing zone matters. So I mean, we could talk for 2 hours about, the relationship between ops geology and drilling departments.
No, I'm sorry, let me cut you off there. You can talk for 2 hours about that. I'll just listen. How about that? I'll listen to that. I can't talk about that. You can.
So when we as an industry first started drilling horizontals, there was a lot of folks that, you know, the driller always would argue with the geo and be like, you're lost, you don't know where you're going, we need to open up this target, we're going to frack it all anyway, blah, blah, blah. And everything that we know now is that lateral placement matters.
Okay.
So, you know, the counter argument would be, you know, hey, this 10-foot window or this 15-foot window, you know, it makes me drill slower, I got to slide more often, so on and so forth. Instead of having that mentality, the mentality that I preach to our guys is, you know, we're going to have a smaller window. We're going to be in the best quality rock that we possibly can be. We're going to actually shrink our window on top of what geology has already said, and then we're going to also take a smaller window and we're going to put rules in place for, you know, if the target inclination is 90, we're not going to be more than, you know, 92 up or 88 down.
Okay.
Plus or minus 2. And then we're going to, you know, do the same on azimuth. And the reason that we do that is we're able to actually slide less frequently because we've got a smoother wellbore and we're never further away from where we want to be. So we're putting in, you know, about as frequent as slides as everybody else, but we're now doing, you know, 10-foot slides instead of 20-foot slides and 8-foot slides instead of 15-foot slides and so on and so forth. And so it's understanding that the purpose of the wellbore is to be productive for as long a period of time at as high an economic rate of return as possible.
Right.
The best way to do that is to be in the best rock. So if you want to slide all this to be, you know, perfect, you know, paint the line kind of deal, it does cost you a little bit more time. It does cost you a little bit more money. But by thinking, you know, where on the system level this is an important thing to do, we're going to spend a little bit more time. We're going to figure out a way to still achieve the same ends, but while saving money and dial it in.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, there've been times where we'll rotate almost 2,000 feet without having to slide toward the end of TV while still being inside our window by doing things this way, just because it's a smoother wellbore.
So it's kind of a mental stage. What I'm saying is like, okay, yeah, we know XYZ is the problem, but we're not going to complain about that. We're going to take that, use that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our job. So we're not going to complain about what we're being asked for X, Y, Z. We're not going to come up with problems to this situation. We're going to come up with kind of solutions.
Yeah, we're going to meet the requirement of X, Y, Z while at the same time still achieving our end goal, which is being faster and more efficient.
Right. So how are you communicating to your team during these times of the current industry that we're in right now? I mean, what I'm saying is like it's very bleak. It's very pessimistic. It's very gloomy. It's murky. No one really knows. You know, you see little hints on LinkedIn here and then, or on Rig Zone, the news on. How are you communicating to your team during these times to kind of keep everyone in line and kind of keep that team feeling?
Yeah. You've just got to go out of your way and you got to pick up the phone. You know, people are social creatures, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to have that constant interaction, and I'm not saying you got to call somebody every single day, but even with the remote working, it's going out and it's talking to the guys that work for you, your service partners. It's trying to talk to everybody about every week or every other week.
Right.
And you know, we just opened up our office again last week, so actually getting out and doing the lunch here and there's been really nice and refreshing.
It's amazing how good that feels these days.
It's really nice to get out and you know, socially distance appropriately.
Of course. Collectively. Of course.
Yes. And just seeing people's faces and you know, asking them how the kids are doing, and you know, hey man, you got any nice deer on your trail cams? You know, hey, how's your teal hunt? Did you catch any fish last time you went to Matterport? So on and so forth. Just all those things that while even during the shutdown where you were trying to maintain relations, you didn't have the time or the energy or the inclination or the means to kind of have the chit chat and the small conversations and things like that. So just getting back in the saddle and doing those things.
But it's one of those things. It's like, you know, don't call when there's work to be had. You know, like, I'm not going to pick up the phone and call you, like, oh, I hear you're picking up that rig. I'm just saying that, everyone that's listening, I'm not saying he is, but I'm not going to call you a week before that rig's coming out. You know, like, you should still have the relationship. You still call people when there's no work going on, or if they find themselves in an unfortunate situation where they don't have a job.
Yeah.
You know, still reach out and talk to those people.
No, and a lot of the people that I've worked with for a long period of time have unfortunately, lost their positions.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey man, just, I've taken a few of them to lunch. It's like, for pennies on the dollar, just maintain that relationship. Take somebody to lunch, even if they're laid off. Just, good people are always going to be good people, regardless of where they work. And you're always going to want good people on your organization.
And you never know where that's going to go. I mean, they might bring something up like, oh, I've been doing X, Y, Z. You're like, oh my God. Well, actually, I just talked to someone 2 weeks ago that was doing that. Let me put you all together. So yeah, I think relationships are extremely important this time of age right now that we're in. And I guess I kind of want to get into this. All right, so let's talk about a myth in our industry, and how would you like a myth that you like to bring up, and how would you like to disprove of and speak to it? And then I kind of want to talk about, well, if it goes away tomorrow, what are you going to get into?
So the myth one, and we've kind of gone back and forth on this, is, I'm a big outdoors person.
Okay.
I love to hunt, love to fish, love to hike, love to recreate, love our public lands, and just the importance of the environment. And you can talk about it in industry jargon with ESG and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, and I'm going to steal one of my old coaches, Jack Cosgrove. He was our head coach at UMaine. I'm going to steal one of his lines.
He's a listener.
Oh, without a doubt. I'll make sure he gets a copy. And he would always say, it's not leave it like you found it, it's leave it better than you found it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the oil field is really missing out on an opportunity for leadership on kind of the environmental situation that we have going on. And you've got, climate change and all these things, and that kind of delves into some lovely
how are they missing out?
So the reason that we're missing out is we're not taking a proactive stance on communicating to the population at whole. And we can go out and we can do 1,000 things perfect. We can drill 1,000 wells perfectly with, no well control events, no spilled fluids, 100% reclamation, no methane leaks, on and on and on. But hey, there's this one well down the road that got drilled in 1982, and it's leaking all this methane.
And then we got a huge black eye from that.
Yeah, and we get a huge black eye from
Mm-hmm.
that. So a couple things that I think we could be proactive on is just, going out of our way to regulate ourselves as an industry.
Okay.
And so you've got a lot of talk recently, specifically about flaring.
Yep.
So I work at a natural gas company. We produce almost exclusively natural gas, so I'm kind of partial to this. But in Texas, our regulatory body, the Rotary Commission, is responsible for the efficient and effective use of resources. Basically, they exist to ensure that we're not wasting resources. Okay. And I can't remember if it was earlier this year or what exactly the month was, but Ryan Sitton had his report on flaring came out, and the numbers are bad. There's no way around it. He tried to gloss it over and compare us to Iraq and Iran, and it's like, hey, if we're going to compare ourselves to Iraq and Iran,
that's not a good thing.
That's not a good thing.
That's not a good thing to compare.
Those aren't people that I want to be comparing ourselves to. But we burn $1 million at $2 Henry Hub and 75 NRI. We burn $1 million in natural gas every day just from flaring in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of gas.
Yeah.
And you can be like, well, flaring is better than just releasing it to the atmosphere. And you're like, you're right. That is factually accurate. Methane's a horrible greenhouse gas. It's 30 times more potent than CO2, so on and so forth.
You don't want to argue factually accurate versus perception, because perception's always going to win.
Yeah, it's like, do I want you to punch me in the face or do I want you to punch me in the arm? It's like both kind of stink.
Right.
But, when you burn it, most natural gas in the state of Texas is going to have at least some H2S. You burn H2S, you're going to get sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide causes acid rain. Acid rain's a big problem already in the world.
Right.
It's not something we want to really get into. So, you've got this just huge wealth of natural gas that's coming out of the Permian Basin right now. You've got all these new pipelines that are finally being built. Permian Express being a big one there. It costs $1.75 billion. So if you do a little back in the napkin and you assume the predominance of the natural gas being flared currently is coming out of the Permian, you're looking at almost a 5-year payout to pay for one of those pipelines on flared gas.
Okay.
So what does that bring us into? So one of the things that I think we could do is you've got an electrical grid in West Texas that is probably more spread out and more diversified than anywhere else because everybody's running their pump jacks off the 483 phase, right? So just like politics, electrical infrastructure is 100% local.
Okay.
So
it's like deregulated or something like that, right?
Well, I don't know about all
I don't know
the regulations
I'm
part.
just trying to throw something that makes me sound smart. Go on.
In the U.S., 4 to 5% of our electricity that's generated is lost through transmission.
Okay.
So if you look at natural gas, the EPA says we're just over 1%. So if you've got a natural gas turbine, it's 47% approximately efficient. You burn that natural gas to generate electricity, and then you transmit it over the high voltage transmission lines. You're losing 4 to 5% of that. So in actuality, when you compare it to the natural gas that came in, you're actually burning 12% or whatever if you do the math. So why not, with the deregulated electrical system that we have here in Texas, start generating more electricity within the basin through small scale, either fuel cell or actual gas turbine. It's going to take up a smaller footprint than all the wind turbines they're throwing out there. And oh, by the way, you don't have to take those really big 200-foot blades and cut them in third and put them in a landfill when they're done. You get to recycle it because it's all aluminum and rare earth metals and stuff like that.
So not to cut you off. So what you're saying, it sounds like a solution to the problem.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like this could help this problem that's kind of plaguing us. But how can we, as an oil and gas industry, communicate that effectively? What we're doing. So to the general public.
I think the biggest thing would be to come out and say, hey, we have a target goal of, X day where the Railroad Commission will actually follow their own regulations and say we're not going to allow flaring after flowback.
Okay.
You got 30 days to flare, and then you got to be in a pipe. And yes, that's not a great answer. There's going to be pain and suffering there. But it's like, if you can't do it when you only got 120 some odd rigs running in the Permian, when are you going to be able to achieve it? We've got the least demand for infrastructure in the Permian that we've probably had in our entire lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of maybe 99 or 84.
Right.
Now's the time to actually kind of push forward into that. And
do you see this conversation happening a lot with companies about talking about this?
So within the gas field, we see a lot of kind of communication with companies talking. You've got folks like Laredo Energy. I believe they're a wholly owned subsidiary of Florida Light and Power. There might be some other money in there also. But the electrical companies are kind of starting to take a notice of the gas companies and some of the procuring their own natural gas feedstocks and things like that. You've got fuel cell folks that are starting to take notice of it also and make these little small scale 1,000 kilowatt fuel cell systems that are super efficient. And that's kind of an interesting thing there, because you take methane, you put it in a fuel cell, and basically, if it's pure methane, or methane and a little bit of nitrogen, maybe some carbon dioxide, you basically get, on the other end, you get water and CO2. It's like, hey, who on the face of the earth knows more about putting CO2 down a pipe and into the earth than the oil and gas industry?
I know some guys.
Yeah.
In barrels, yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of our strengths.
Right.
And there's a huge amount of infrastructure already in place for that. So let's find where the infrastructure cross places. Let's strategically locate these small scale electrical generation sites, and let's get out there and let's take the CO2 that would have been vented through somebody's midstream facility, and instead use it where it's already being bought and sold by Kinder and so on.
Well, as an E&P company, what's the cost? Is a high level of cost to actually start changing your infrastructure out there to get these small fuel cells and all that stuff? Is it because a lot of people right now don't want to spend money because there's no money to spend. No, that's why you got to spend somebody else's money. Okay. Our
government's been picking winners and losers for a long time. Let's say, hey, you actually want to do something good here? Let's let's put some backing behind it, let's put some tax credits, let's do some things. There's already tax credits in place for tertiary recovery and CO2 sequestration in place. You know, let's partner with the electrical grid operators in figuring out. We're already paying a significant amount to run the electrification of our fields in order to run all this equipment, all the surface equipment, and pumping units and things of that nature. Let's go ahead and generate more of our own gas. A lot of that stuff, if you sat down and run the economics, while its payouts aren't, you know, sub 2 years, which is kind of one of the big financial goals that everybody wants to have a sub 2 year payout.
Man, I'm curious if it's that way anymore.
But there aren't really any projects that are sub 2 years. So if you're looking at something where, you know, you can put it in your ESG page, you can go to the market and say we're doing this. Even if it's a 4-year payout or a 5-year payout, it's still a payout. It's still net positive.
But that's the thing. You talk about what we're doing,
and you get to go to the market and tell them.
Yeah.
The biggest obstacle that E&Ps face right now is access to capital.
Yeah.
And there's just no money out there. You know, in 2015, 2016, yes, the E&P market got just hammered. But at the same time, Daddy Warbucks, Wall Street, had pockets full of cash.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they were just throwing money around everywhere. This time, not so much. It's like, no, you've got to compete with these companies making a vaccine. You got to compete with healthcare. You got to compete with all these other people.
You got to compete with all these other companies that are not even in our industry right now. Yeah.
Yep. And right now we're not in vogue, and we're not doing the work that we need to do to go out and address some of these issues. And to really, you know, it's like, hey, it doesn't really matter if you believe that climate change is a problem or not. The people that have the money do.
Yeah.
So go out and work to solve that problem while still solving yours. Because your problem is you want to be an ongoing concern. You want to be making money. You want to be a company 10 years from now. You want to add shareholder value, or you want to return equity to shareholders in some way, be it private shareholders or public shareholders. And so just, you know, answer the questions that's being asked of you, address the issues that are being presented for you in a public way. You know,
well,
who cares if you really...
Well, that shows responsibility and accountability right there as an oil and gas company. If you're addressing issues for the people that have the money that, you know, are shelling it out, the private equity Wall Street, whatever you want to call it, you're showing that, hey, yeah, we're on top of what you guys are concerned about, and this is what we're doing. Yes. Versus, hey, this is an issue that I just got, you know, that I read about online. What are y'all doing to do this? What are y'all doing to combat this?
And it's a problem that we're set up to solve so much better than anybody else. And you know, the easiest example you can throw out there is, you know, electric cars are all in vogue right now. Everybody's like, oh, I want to go out and get a Tesla, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's been study after study after study. If you take the entire carbon footprint of the vehicle, from the mining of the materials through the recycling of the materials at the end, you're somewhere around 25% more carbon created to make, own, and recycle an electric vehicle over, you know, just a regular gas sedan. And obviously, you know, they're, you know, it's not our super duties that we use to pull our livestock trailers around by any stretch of the imagination, but for the normal, average, everyday American family of 4, they're driving around in a Toyota Camry or Honda Accord or so on and so forth. They compete on the carbon environment with the EVs. And you know, if you were able to explain that better, and you were able to make that from a holistic standpoint of you know, just total carbon footprint from a system level output, you know, I think we can compete with anybody, especially on the natural gas front. You know, everybody's going to need NGLs because everybody loves plastic. Right. You know, the world's going to need oil for the foreseeable future because everything runs on oil. But where we can really win is on the natural gas front. You know, if you look at just the total landmass area that you need for a wind farm, if you look at the total landmass area that you need for a solar farm, these are huge areas. And but look, at the end of the day, you got the facts, you got this, you got that, and I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, but how do you communicate that? How does our industry communicate these realistic facts to the populace? It's like, oh, but I plug in my car, and it's so, you know, oh, I just drove by a wind farm, yeah, but how do you communicate these facts about the land grab, the carbon footprint to the population? Well, I mean, it all starts on an interpersonal kind of level. You know, you've got to educate your staff, educate your employees, and then it goes out from a grassroots method from there. From an industry, you know, yeah, we've got these websites, and Chesapeake Energy had these commercials and so on and so forth, but they're still not capturing anybody's ideas for what this is. But if you start, you know, throwing up pictures of rare earth mines in China, and if you start throwing up pictures of, you know, what it takes to actually create some of these things, and saying, hey, you can have this or you can have this, people are going to pick the cleaner one.
Yeah, yeah.
That Marcellus well site that's making 55 million MCF a day and is just one little wellhead on a quarter-acre plat tied into a, you know, a central production facility 5 miles away through pipelines that nobody can see. That's a lot smaller and a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Now, we as an industry have got to do a better job of our of cleaning up our messes, and I think if we can do a better job of cleaning up our messes and removing those black eyes that we have as an industry, it's going to take away the things that everybody else that's outside the industry is saying, well, yeah, that's all well and good. Yeah, you know, the data is the data, but what about that? And, you know, a lot of that gets into the place of we don't bond our wells enough. You know, we need to have either a higher regulatory threshold for actually, you know, bonding our wells for cleaning them up, or we need to have a higher regulatory threshold for actually cleaning up our wells.
Okay.
So right now in the state of Texas, you've got, you know, an inactive well list, and technically you've either got to plug 10% of your inactive wells, or you've got to pay a bond for them. The bond is nowhere near enough to actually remediate that site. And on federal lands, it's even worse, because I was reading, you know, they haven't updated those bond amounts since like the 70s.
Wow.
Dollar in the 70s is worth a little bit than the dollar now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we took a more active, proactive approach on that, and listen, nobody wants to talk about plugging wells right now.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go out and you don't want to spend $75,000 to plug all these inactive wells. But it's like, you can either do it now or you can do it later.
Well, you're seeing more and more talk about these abandoned orphan wells lately. I mean, if you go online, you see more and more talk about this lately.
It's probably one of the biggest black eyes that the industry has. You know, oil and gas development in the U.S. is cleaner than probably anywhere on earth.
Right.
You know, we don't have oil sands like Canada. Our Canadian brothers and sisters have a relatively good environmental record, and they try very hard. But they still have oil sands, and that's a dirty surface pit mining, heavy equipment extraction method, and so I would say that oil and gas produced in the U.S. is cleaner than anywhere else on the face of the earth, and we can still get better at it though.
Well, the thing is though, just kind of you're saying these little, you know, black eyes that are kind of like, you know, whether it's flaring, whether it's release of, you know, gas, or whether it's, you know, these abandoned orphan wells, it's like, I think you're kind of bringing up an extremely good point. Like, yeah, these are all black eyes that we have, or these are all, you know, things we could improve on. Let's fix them now before next thing you know, it's a you know, Wall Street Journal article about, you know, orphan wells and all. Let's look like we're doing something proactive versus being reactive.
It was Bloomberg, and it was last week, so we're already a little late on that one.
Okay.
But you know, but it's amazing.
But it's coming up though.
How much, and when you look at the data, it's amazing how much some of these wells are leaking, and at what rate. You know, there was a study in Pennsylvania that looked at orphaned wells, and they found that almost 80% of them were leaking natural gas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge amount of methane that's coming out of some of these orphaned wells, and if we fix that now and just took it head on and assumed that, hey, this is a problem, we're going to fix it, we're going to move forward, we're going to spend the capital to do it, it's behind us.
Yeah.
It's no longer a problem. It's no longer something where, you know, we're not going to turn it into a bigger problem 3 years from now. You know, that from a safety standpoint, if that well is leaking, can something set it on fire?
Right.
Is the wellhead going to corrode and cause it to leak worse? You know how to make it not leak? Pour a bunch of cement down it, and, you know, then cut the wellhead off at the surface.
I mean, you can only sweep stuff or not show attention to things that are kind of pressing for so long.
Yep.
before it comes biting you in the ass pretty much. I mean, you only have a certain amount of time.
Yes.
And I think right now, as you said, Bluebird and the Orphan Wells and the Abandoned Wells, I mean, I think it's going to be coming to the table pretty soon.
Yep.
And if you're right, if you're responsive or you're reactive on it, is going to matter.
It wouldn't surprise me at all to see, a Joe Biden commercial come out there where, he's already against federal drilling.
Mm-hmm.
He stated that I'm not going to ban fracking, I'm just going to ban drilling.
Right.
Well, you don't get to frack it if you don't get to drill it. So, we either need to fix it or somebody else is going to fix it for it. And they're not going to fix it in a way that we like.
Right, right.
So let's self-regulate.
We have the chance, we have the opportunity to write the playbook right now.
Yes.
Let's not let someone else dictate that lives 3,000 miles away how we should write that
Yeah,
playbook.
and has no idea what they're doing in that given industry.
Amen, I hear that. So, oil field dries up, you're gone tomorrow. What would you get into?
Cows.
Cows. Man, we did a ranching around the Rotary with Cole Thompson. We talked about cows. I tagged my first cow. All right, buddy. I am up to speed on cow. And you got some land too around Fredericksburg, right?
Yep. So we're about halfway between Brady and Mason. So we're 50 minutes up the road from Fredericksburg on the west side of US 87.
Have you been spending a lot of time over there during the quarantine?
We have. The remote work's been very good for allowing us to get a lot of things done.
It hasn't been bad, man.
No.
Like, it really hasn't. I mean, it's been a kind of a weird break,
Yep.
you know?
We got wireless internet at the ranch, so we're able to do basically anything we want there.
Just like the settlers, I like that. Just like the settlers. And so you'd be running cows and all, but you got love for drilling though.
Yeah.
And you said you
35 and I play in the dirt. It's
yeah, we talked about this. Like drilling to you is something that kind of fascinates you and kind of keeps pushing you forward, just because it's so alive and it's always active. Your decision right now can affect something in 30 minutes or 3 days. So as long as there's gonna be wells to drill, you're still gonna be focused on drilling.
Oh, I'm gonna try to find a way, one way or the other. Leading the team or sweeping the floors. I'm gonna be involved in drilling somehow.
Well, hey man, we're kind of running up on time. Am I not asking something that we thought we'd cover that you kind of want to bring up? I mean, we kind of covered everything.
Yeah.
For now.
I mean, it just
Well, what
going back to
what message? Give us a message.
just leave it better than you found it.
Okay.
You can take that from an interpersonal standpoint. Be a better husband tomorrow than you were today. Be a better wife tomorrow than you were today. Just try to wake up and pick one thing that, hey, I can do this better. Just be a lifelong learner. Understand that you're never perfect and you don't need to be perfect. You just need to continue pushing forward and trying.
And also, I mean, something that you're kind of that you spoke about a lot, whether it's on the podcast even before, but mentorship. Be a mentor to someone. Take someone under your wing, and you have a lot of good points that we kind of, as an industry, can face right now that I think that people should be discussing, because we do have a chance right now to rectify the situation before we're told to fix it. Yeah, and that doesn't bode well for oil and gas industry.
No.
We'll fix our own problems.
Yes.
All right, Jake. Well, anyway, if anyone has any questions for Jake or myself, you can reach us at roundtherotary@cap-petro.com. Again, it's roundtherotary@cap-petro.com. And Jake, I appreciate you coming in, man. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I enjoyed your what you brought to the table today. I appreciate that, bud. And we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Keep on coming round, baby. Oh, and I just might give in.